In this video, we're going to be taking a look at the American Southwest. We're talking about the area of modern-day New Mexico, Arizona, and parts of northern Mexico. So for this lecture, we're going to be going back a little in time and see the development of peoples there in the area of the Southwest. So let's go all the way back to the Paleo-Indian period. You may have remembered we talked about the Paleo-Indian period earlier in the semester. And during the Paleo-Indian period, most people survived by hunting large game. We're talking about hunting things like mammoths and mastodons and giant bison, these kind of large animals that supplied a lot of meat for a long period of time if you were able to preserve it. And so that was the way of life during the Paleo-Indian period. But that way of life began to change around 9000 BCE. And one of the reasons possibly for this change was a change in the climate. See, before 9000 BCE, there was an ice age going on in that part of the world. And so the ice age, of course, colder climate. That's why you have animals like the woolly mammoth, the furry coat. And so you're going to see a change in the climate, and it's going to begin to get warmer. Okay, and so over about 1,000 years, between 9000 and 8000 BCE, you're going to see a lot of those animals, that large game, go extinct. All right, now why did they go extinct? Scholars are still debating this. Some say maybe it has something to do with the climate change. Perhaps the change in climate might have affected food sources for these animals. Maybe some of the plants that they ate went extinct because of the change in climate, and so that might have affected the populations of large game. Others argue that maybe the Paleo-Indians overhunted the large game, and that's why they went extinct. Others say maybe it was a combination of both, right? The climate change, loss of food source, and overhunting. Maybe those are the reasons why the game went extinct, but whatever the reason, that's going to have a big impact on the lifestyle of the Paleo-Indians. And in fact, around this time period between 9000 and 8000 BCE, you're going to see a shift in the way of lives of the people, and they're going to be transitioning into what is known as the Archaic period. And during the Archaic period, people aren't going to be hunting large game anymore because they're extinct. Instead, they're going to be focusing on gathering plant foods and seeds. And so there's more of an emphasis on gathering now because the large game isn't there anymore. Okay, you're still going to have hunting, though. It's not just a gathering way of life, but instead they're going to be hunting smaller animals that are still around. And so in the Southwest, that's going to be the way of life for a period of time, gathering plant foods, seeds, hunting small game like rabbits. But around 2000 BCE, so after several thousand years pass, in the Southwest, we're going to see another change in climate. Okay, so for the years between 8000 and 2000 BCE, the climate in the Southwest was very arid, okay, extremely dry. But around 2000 BCE, you're going to see less aridity in the area of the Southwest, and this is going to open things up for agriculture. 500 years later, around 1500 BCE, you're going to see the importation of a new crop into the Southwest, and that crop is maize. And maize, of course, is coming from the South. It's coming from Mesoamerica, where it had been developed for thousands of years before this, going all the way back perhaps to around 7000 BCE. But eventually this crop makes its way up into the Southwest and is going to become another one of the foods that will be cultivated by the peoples there during this time period when the Southwest is becoming less arid and you can start to grow foods there. Another major crop that will be introduced from Mesoamerica again is going to be beans, as well as squash. You may remember maize, beans, squash. These are known as the three sisters, right? These are the staples that were grown in Mesoamerica. Well, beans are going to be imported around 1000 BCE, so about 500 years after maize makes its way into the Southwest. And beans are going to be another important food source for a couple of reasons. One in particular, when beans are eaten with maize, they release an amino acid known as lysine. And this is an important amino acid that human beings need to have. So beans are going to contribute greatly to the diet of human beings in the Southwest after they are introduced. Another important thing about beans, we talked about this when we talked about the Three Sisters before, is that they release nitrogen into the soil. Okay, and that's important because after growing maize, nitrogen is sucked out of the soil because the maize eats nitrogen. That's what it feeds on, right? It's one of the nutrients that helps the maize to grow. And so the soil eventually will be depleted of nitrogen, and so it's important to plant beans in the same area that you plant your maize because it's going to bring more nitrogen back into the soil and help to feed the maize. All right, so it makes sense to grow these crops together. Squash is another important crop that's grown along with the maize and the beans. Okay, so basically what you're seeing is changes in the lifestyles of people in the Southwest due to climate change. Okay, it affects their food source, and so they're going to change their lifestyle to compensate and survive in the area, and you're going to see new foods being imported through trade from Mesoamerica, like maize and beans. Okay. And so you're starting to see the people there in the Southwest shifting to an agricultural way of life. Still, they'll be hunting and gathering as well to supplement their diet. Women were primarily the ones who were responsible for gathering. So for those thousands of years, women were providing a lot of the food for the people there by gathering seeds and other plant foods. But you're eventually going to start to see men get involved in agriculture. Women were most likely the first to be involved in growing foods, but as the agricultural way of life starts to take hold in the Southwest, you're also going to see men and women involved in agriculture. And this is going to be for a couple of reasons. So for one, creating irrigation networks to bring water to the crops is a lot of work. And so there was a need for manpower to be involved in building those irrigation networks. Okay, so that's one reason why you see men getting involved in agriculture. Also, the fields, the agricultural fields where the food was grown, were usually located far away from the villages of people in the Southwest, and so men would accompany women as a way of protecting them on those long trips back and forth to the agricultural fields. Okay, so a couple of reasons why men began to get involved in agriculture in the Southwest. Here is a map of the region, and you see here three cultural groups in the Southwest, parts of northern Mexico, modern Mexico. So you have the cultural group, the Mogollon. We'll talk about them first. Eventually, this cultural group will shift into the ancestral Pueblo cultural group here, located to the north. And then you also have the Hohokam, which we'll talk about last in the area of modern-day Arizona.